London artist. It's Jennifer Joy, and boy, oh boy, it's been quite the year. And I know that a lot of us have been experiencing emotional highs and emotional lows, and there's all this uncertainty going on. So emotions are at a high point. So a month ago now, I decided to do a special series on how to navigate your emotions. So if you've been feeling overwhelmed or stressed or happy one day and upset the next, this is the series for you. Go back. You can watch this video and then go back to number one in the series. So today, we are wrapping it all up. Now, let me remind you that this is all based on the work of Fearless Living founder Rhonda Britton. And I keep forgetting to get my book, so let me reach back and get it. This tool is in this book. And for those of you who don't know, I am a master certified Fearless Living trainer, mentor, and coach. So I am totally like, I've been doing this work for years and years, like more than 10 years, almost 15. So today, we are going to look at the tool in this book that's called the 4 A's. And we are on that fourth step in the 4 A's. So let me go ahead and get rid of the screen and share my screen here. All right. Um, I hope you can, yes, you should be able to hear me. I got a warning that just came up on my screen. So this is the 4 A's. So week one, we talked about acknowledging your feelings and how important it is to really have a full range of feelings and be able to identify the exact specific name of your feeling. So again, I've said it before, frustration was my feeling before I hired a life coach. I was always frustrated. And that didn't give me the nuance of how I was really feeling. And more importantly, the nuance that would let me feel those feelings that we all love and crave and desire, like joy and happiness and contentment. Step two, I gave you this amazing 90-second tool to process your feelings. That is not fearless living. That's my own thing, based on several things that I've sort of put together. But allow time to process your feelings. This is amazing. Again, 90 seconds to process your feelings. Step three, ask what you're committed to. That was what we worked on last week. Let me just scroll it up here. Ask what you're committed to. So it's not about being reactive and showing up. Say, if I was frustrated, I don't want to show up in the world as frustrated. I don't want to show up in my relationships as frustrated, right? So it's about getting down to what you value and the type of person you want to be and identifying that, asking yourself that, and then creating an intention statement based on that. And I gave you a great workbook in that. So I would just want to mention that when you're doing this intention work, it's not that type of attention that's like, oh, intention that's, oh, I have a goal. I have an intention to finish this next week. It's not a goal. We're going to talk a little bit more about goals today. That is really that upper level value or the way you want to show up. So it might be love, compassion, charitable, courageous, beautiful, authentic, beautiful like interview beauty, authentic. It might be words like that that you are using as a guide for your actions and your behavior. All right. So again, go back, check out that video. There's a whole bunch of information and a download that you can get. And then finally, this week, act on your commitment, step 4. So, this again is about not being reactive. It's about not letting your feelings take you out. And this is super important, especially I think if you own your own business. Because I don't know about you, but I've had days where I just didn't want to do my work. I felt lazy or I felt maybe a little drained. That's a little bit different than just feeling like, I don't want to do it. Or I felt tired. Now, what happens to the work if you own your own business? What happens to the work or could happen if you feel lazy and tired and drained? You might just put it on the back burner, which is fine for a day. If you need some self care, you've been working hard, you need a little self care, you got a little bug, you need some self care. But what if that becomes a pattern and you are consistently putting things on the back burner, procrastinating? Your overwhelm makes you do so many things that you can't keep track of it. You have a lack of focus, right? So this is about going, okay, I'm going to process my feelings. I'm going to get that overall intention statement of how I want to show up in the world. And now I'm going to act from that space. I'm going to act from that space. So let's say I'm going to go back to using the frustrated. If I'm feeling frustrated and I've processed my emotions, but what I'm really committed to is having loving relationships. Like that's a value for me, and I'm committed to having loving relationships. Then when I'm acting on my commitments, I'm not going in there guns blazing, right? I'm not going in there frustrated. I've processed that feeling. I'm going in there practicing love. And practice is a really important word. And again, this is all in the intention training. Practice is an important word because we're humans. We might not do it perfectly. So, acting on your commitments is acting from that place of a loving space for me, if that's my intention. So, oh, I was looking for a paper, but I actually have it on screen. So, let me stop this share for a moment. So if you have been in the community at all, or if you're one of my clients or in a group of mine, you have seen this tool. This is my favorite fearless living tool I have used with every person I have ever worked with, every class I've done, every group coaching I've done, I have used this. So let me bring up the next sheet here. And for those of you, I know those of you who are watching, you're like, oh, I know what this is. This is the stretch, risk, die model. Stretch, risk, die. Oops, let me just scroll up a little bit. Stretch, risk, or die. So this is really a great way to gauge, to plan your actions. If you're acting from that commitment, you can actually plan your actions out, plan toward your goals. So let me explain it for those of you who might be unfamiliar. Yes, Mary, I know you are familiar with this. Yes. So the comfort zone, that's your status quo. That's what you do normally. It might not actually feel comfortable. Like frustration at that time was my comfort zone. I was frustrated all the time. It was my day to day status quo existence. So that's a stretch or a comfort zone, excuse me. The stretch is the next layer out, sort of in that peachy color on this diagram. The stretch is that next layer out. And a stretch is something that you know you can do, but you just haven't done it yet. So it's just a stretch. You know you can do it, you haven't done it yet. You've been procrastinating, you just haven't gotten to it. A risk, the risk zone in more of that orange circle, is further from your status quo, further from your comfort zone. And it's something that it brings up more panic in your body. It brings up more fear symptoms. Like you might actually get sweaty palms or a tingly scalp or sort of that knot in your stomach when you're moving into the risk zone. Because in the risk zone, there is a risk of failure or a risk of rejection, a risk of failure or a risk of rejection. So when we're acting from a place of fear or reactivity, we want to avoid the risk zone because we don't want to be rejected or fail. And then that die zone is the next one. It's that red circle furthest from our status quo comfort zone. And that is the zone where it's like, oh my gosh, if I did that, I think I'd just die. And not literally die, not literally die. These are more emotional fears, but it's like, it's so far outside your comfort zone that you don't even necessarily want to contemplate it. It's not something you really want to do ever. Like, oh my gosh. So as we're riding this emotional wave right now, we want to really, really pay attention to the stretch zone. If you're feeling a lot of emotions, and even though you've processed them and you've asked yourself what you're committed to, we want to really focus on that stretch zone. So things you know you could do, but you just haven't done them yet. So for me, looking at that, if I'm feeling frustrated in a relationship and my commitment is to be loving in my relationships, to practice being loving, I'm willing to do that, then I would say, okay, what am I willing to do that would be in my stretch zone? Because my comfort zone would be to just be frustrated. And when I'm frustrated, I'm going to withdraw and pretty much withdraw. I'll say withdraw and be grumpy, right? So my stretch zone in the loving area, something that I know I could do, but I just haven't done yet, might be to say, I didn't plan this out, so I have to think. A risk would probably feel like having the conversation. So a stretch would be maybe planning out how my bullet points for this conversation. All right, gang, I don't know what happened. It cut me off. I'm not exactly sure where it cut me off. So I just want to reiterate that my stretch from a loving relationship sort of point of view would be to start planning a conversation and getting those bullet points down of how I could enter into that conversation lovingly. And then perhaps I would decide to take that risk eventually. Perhaps I would decide, but again, we want to focus on the stretch zone, especially if you are riding the emotional wave right now. Be gentle with yourself, be kind with yourself. And I am having issues, obviously, with my internet. So I'm hoping that this is clear cut, that this is all going to work together. If not, I will have to come back later in the day. I have some appointments today, so I'll have to come back later in the day and sort of fill in any gap that was there with a new video. But I hope that this has given you all the information you need to really act on your commitments, not act on your feelings. Because my mentor, Rhonda, who's the founder of Fearless Living, she actually says feelings lie. And maybe you've heard that before too. Feelings can lie, right? Feelings can lie. So we want to really be down and act from the truth of who we are, from our heart, from our soul, from our whole being. So I hope this has served you. Again, if these videos, the series of 4, I recommend watching them all. Let me come off the screen share. I recommend watching them all. They are tools that I have used through the years to really be able to act in a more powerful, authentic way in the world and show up as the person who is loving and kind and also powerful. So take care. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. And of course, I always love to hear a like or your insight, or if you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, because when you interact with this post, it gets it out into the community. Facebook likes that, and it pushes it into the community so that your fellow abundant artists can benefit from this as well. So again, any questions, let me go. So take care of yourself, express yourself from that authentic you, that heart, that soul, and be fearless. Be fearless. Use these fearless living tools to be fearless. Master your fears. Bye bye, everyone.